Good morning. How's everybody?
Good morning.
Our speaker today is our very own Derek Gutierrez. Derek is the broker of Authority Mortgage. He is one of the original founders of our Toastmaster group, and I've seen over the years where his communication skills have just exponentially grown. And so completely made sense that he came forward and said, hey, I want to do this one day, and it's titled Communicating to Win. So join me in welcoming our very own Derek Gutierrez.
Never used this before, so. Ooh. Wow, this is a great way to start, huh? Is there volume on this thing?
The Twilight Zone there.
Tune my guitar or something, right? All right, now that I'm nervous, jeez. All right, hi everybody. For those of you guys that don't know me, I gotta remember I have to stay behind the lectern. I'm really actually used to trying to own the whole entire stage here, so this will be a little bit different for me to try to stay put the best that I can. I'm good? All right, great. Well, for those of you that don't know me, my name is Derek Gutierrez. I am the broker, owner of Authority Mortgage, and I've been a member of TIGAR for several years now, probably 4 or 5, 6 years, I'm not even sure. But I am the original charter president for the Inland Gateway Toastmasters. Yay! So I think that's how most of you guys know me best, is through Toastmasters. I don't really talk about Authority Mortgage too much. The reason being is that I really love Toastmasters, and I love what it does for folks. And it was tough for me to come up with something that wouldn't be a pitch about Toastmasters, but more so something that I could deliver to you guys, the group, being that we're really all in the same type of industry, right? We're in the industry of communicating, we're in the industry of sales, we're in the industry of really our persons, being out there, meeting with people and doing business together. But let me first roll back and give you a reason why this is so important to me. We all have different phases of our life of why we become involved in things and what they do for us. Well, for me, it really started because I started in sales. And for those that know me, I have a special needs son, Blake. And I remember when he was a little boy playing on the playground, before he could talk or communicate or do any of that stuff, everything was grunting and pointing, and he just had this wonderful disposition, this smile, this love. And it was amazing for my wife and I, because we could sit there and we could watch him, and what he could end up doing is he could command people. He could get people to do what he wants, even though the words that were coming out of his mouth weren't really the words that say would come out of my mouth, or in a specific order that they would come out of my mouth. He was not trained to speak. He really struggled with it. But yet, he could get what he wanted. So we really thought that was amazing. For me, I'm an extrovert. I'm not afraid to talk. I'm not afraid to get in front of people and joke around and have a good time, put myself out there. But for me, when I got into sales, you would think, hey, it's all about having a good personality, and you get out there and you start talking, and that makes it great, right? Well, not necessarily, because if you don't really know what you're doing or what you're saying or how you're saying it, or what your body and your body language is saying, then there's a lot of things that get lost in translation. And I can remember when I had this defining moment. I had my boss and my mentor, and for those of you that have ever had to do like a joint sales call, has anybody ever had to do that? Where you've had somebody else on the other line listening to everything that you're saying, and you've got the customer on the phone, and you're trying to be your best salesperson. And I can remember having to talk about that phone call afterwards. And he's like, well, what did you think about it? I'm like, wow, I thought it went great. I got those positive buying signals. They're definitely in. And he's like, nah, you didn't get it. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, weren't you on that call? I'm like, well, yeah. They said they're going to call me back, and it sounded real positive. They're going to talk to their wife, and yeah, I got this. Sure enough, he was right. I didn't have it. And it happened, multiple times. And after a while, you're going, well, wait a minute. What the heck am I doing wrong? Like, I'm a likable guy. I got a personality. I'm friendly. They seem to like me, but why do they keep saying no? Like, what the heck is going on here? And so it was learning that it was how I was saying it. And a lot of times, what you're able to do in person, face-to-face, is different from what you're able to do on the phone. And I'm sure you've probably heard it multiple times. When you get on the phone, you smile because it comes out loud and clear. That was one of those things. I was always afraid. I was so afraid that I wasn't going to get the sale that I just had this level of stress that was just emitting through the phone, this certain desperation. And especially when you're commissioned, right? Nobody's paying you. You got to close the deal, so I want to get this deal closed. So from that, I really began to focus on my communication and my leadership skills. And that was when I decided to join Toastmasters. And that was the one thing that really made me super aware of what I was doing, what I was saying, how I was saying it. And it put you in a very uncomfortable situation, such as being in front of people. Learning how to really, like I like to say, get those butterflies to fly in formation. And even like today, I was nervous getting up here. I'm always nervous getting up here, no matter what. Even if I have to just introduce Toastmasters. Because if you're a type of person where you want to do a good job, naturally you're going to get nervous. You're going to think of all these things that are running through your mind, and you want to make sure that I'm delivering the message, that you're hearing what I'm saying. And so that's what makes most of us nervous. Now, what I'd like to impress upon a lot of us is that there's a difference between being a salesman or being in sales and communicating. Sales, we learn techniques, right? We learn about our product, we learn about what we're going to say, but we don't always learn about how we're going to deliver that message to whoever is on the other side of us, whether it's on the phone or in front of us, right? It's, I know how to ask a question with a question, but am I actually asking that question in a way that the person that I'm talking to is receiving that information? That's where the real challenge comes into play. I like to think about it like being a professional athlete. Now, a lot of us, we call ourselves professionals, but we don't necessarily focus on being a professional in the right areas. And the best way that I can explain it is a professional athlete. The reason they're professional is because they practice over and over and over and over and over. The average professional athlete, granted being the professional, they should 40 hours a week. Even college students are putting up to 40 hours a week in training. And if you think about it, whether it's your tennis swing or your golf swing, whatever it is, each athlete, they understand the rules to the game. They know how to play the game, but what defines them is how well they practice their skill set and how well they are able to perform at their very best. And in our job, we deal with people. So what do we need to know? We need to know people. We have to understand their personality types. We have to understand their communication types. We have to be able to interact and provide information to them so that they receive it correctly. I mean, what is the number one thing where things happen? Miscommunication, right? Something I said to you was not interpreted correctly, even though I know I said it, but for whatever reason, you didn't hear what I was saying correctly. And so therefore, that information becomes misinterpreted, it's not communicated properly, and then that's where the problems arise. And obviously, problems are going to arise despite our best efforts. Things like this are going to happen. But if we're able to exercise our key skill sets, I keep watching this thing, our key skill sets, this is where we're going to improve not just sales, but the quality of our life, the quality of our relationships. I like to think about it this way: is most of us either married or we have kids. And have you ever told your kid to do something, and they're like, well, that's not what you said to do. It just actually happened in my house the other day. I walked around the corner, and I know my wife, when she left, she told my son, I want you to clean the counter, clean the stove, and wipe off the fridge. And I walk in, and he's like, I cleaned the counter really, really good. I'm like, well, what about the stove and the fridge? Mom didn't say to do that. Yes, she did. I was standing right here. You were standing right there. She did. Yes, So we're going back and forth, right? But he didn't hear it. He got caught on that one piece of information, and the rest of the information wasn't able to translate. Now, of course, we could probably all relate to this, is when our kids backtalk with us, and as a parent, you're like, don't get that tone with me. What tone? That tone right there. Don't get, whoa. Don't get that tone with me. And we don't recognize, even in our own relationships, certain tones that we have with one another. And tones go a long way. And interestingly enough, you would think tone is like a verbal communication. It's actually not. It's defined as nonverbal because there's no actual words. It reflects emotion. The other is body language. You know, have you ever come home and you look at your spouse and they just have that look on their face? And you're like, what's the matter, honey? Nothing's the matter. Something's wrong. No, why? Why do you think something's wrong? Well, look at that look on your face. What look? And these are things that we just unconsciously, we don't recognize that we're doing. And that's what really got me thinking about this whole topic about communicating to win, because it's just not in our business. It's in everything. It's with our children, it's with our spouse, it's with our friends, it's with strangers, and it's also with people that we're prospecting for our business. So on that note, I'm going to go to this power presentation. I put this together last minute because I realized that, oh my gosh, this is a lot of information and I don't want you guys to go to sleep on me. So communicating to win. Communication involves getting information from one person to another person. It's the art and process of creating and sharing ideas back and forth. Now this is, I thought, was a really good question. If I tell you something and you don't hear it, did I actually communicate with you? Right? I didn't communicate with you. If I give you directions from point A to B to C to D to get somewhere and you miss B, you're not going to get to point D. You're not going to be able to follow my directions correctly. So therefore, what I said and what I did doesn't matter because I didn't communicate it effectively to you, or I didn't have the skill set to recognize that you didn't get that message correctly. Hold on there. Coffee's great, but it dries the mouth out too. All right, great. Communication skills are the tools that we use to remove the barriers to effective communication. Barriers, it's a key word. Do you ever think about when you're communicating with somebody in terms of barriers? You know, can anybody give me an idea of what a barrier might be in communication? Anybody?
Language.
Language, there you go. With cultural differences. We have environment. These are things that are considered barriers. Now, this is one thing I didn't realize, especially being a Toastmaster, is the communication process. Can you believe there's that much going on in terms of the communication process? I didn't think so. This is why I did this PowerPoint presentation, because once I realized that there was this much going on, I was like, holy smokes, this is going to definitely get lost in translation. So the source in the communication process, we're the source. We're the person giving the information to whomever that receiver is. And what we're doing is we're delivering a message. So me as the source, I have to understand who I'm actually delivering the message to, what is that message that's being sent, and understanding how you're going to receive it. Now encoding. Encoding is the process of which you on the other side of the table, whoever I'm talking to, how is it you are disseminating the information that I'm providing to you? And this can happen a lot. We use jargon or we use trade talk. If we're doing a presentation, we can tend to talk over people just assumably because we're comfortable. We talk with our colleagues, right? And it's easy to get caught in our trade talk and recognize that, oh, you know what I'm talking about. But if we don't practice, we forget that perhaps the person on the other side has no clue. And they may not be willing to go, oh, I don't understand what you're saying to me. So we have to be really in tune to their ability to encode the information that we're giving to them. Channel. Well, what channel am I talking to you? Am I talking to you face to face? Am I talking to you on the telephone? Am I sending an email to you? Even more so now, right? Especially in the real estate business, text messaging has become super popular. And I mean, I don't really get it because we're in the business of communicating, and we're actually have a fiduciary responsibility to our clients to really do our best. And I'm not saying that by text messaging, but how many times, I mean, I don't know about you guys, but how many times have you tried to get into a property or talk to an agent and the only way you can ever get them is by text message, right? Which is truly the most ineffective, even though it's popular, it's really an ineffective way of communicating. Decoding that information, it's the same thing. It's like you're taking that information, how I deliver it to you is how you're able to decode that information. The receiver, again, I've got to understand my receiver. Are they from a different culture? Do we have language barriers? Those are super, super key things. I joke because with the last name of Gutierrez, people automatically assume that I know Spanish. And while I should know Spanish, I don't, so it always becomes this topic. They look at this white guy with a name like Gutierrez and they go, how did that happen? So I was in this story, but a lot of times they'll talk to me in Spanish. And then I go, oh, no, español, poquito. And then now I'm stuck because they're not sure whether or not I speak Spanish or I don't speak Spanish. Right? And then I'm like, oh, man, like I should just talk to you in English. And feedback. Feedback's super important. We have to be able to recognize these signals. If I'm talking to you and I'm delivering a message, I have to be able to know by looking at your facial features, your eye movements, your body language, your tone, recognizing that if you're not receiving my information correctly, then I have to be able to engage you. I should be able to pull out of you what I need to get from you so that we can continue to move forward. If I'm not recognizing your signals, I can't go to the next step. And then I'm the one in control. We are the master communicators here. Most of the people that we come in contact with, they are not the master communicators. So it's up to us in terms of what we're sending and recognizing if it's being received and being able to create a situation that continues to open up dialogue so that we can get to where we want to get to. And then the context. The context is the environment. What kind of situations we're in. I'll give you a good example. You know, we go to networking events, right? Well, no, we go to drinking events here at TIGAR. But we go to networking events. And have you ever, you're trying to network with somebody, and you're feeling that vibe with them, and the idea you want to build a relationship with them, right? That's the whole point of going to a networking event. And then a third party swoops in. And then the next thing you know, boom, what you're talking about and that rapport building that you're trying to do has just been swept away by some third party that's just kind of put a fork in what's going on. And on that note, in terms of context, I always think about is, what is it about alcohol at networking events, right? If we're supposed to be our best versions of ourselves, now again, I'm not talking about our fun parties and that type of thing, but I'm talking about, you know, like networking after dark that they promote, you probably get in your email, and it's a little liquid courage so that we have the ability to talk. Well, you're not your best version of yourself, right? You might say something really dumb. You know, you might all of a sudden start thinking she thinks you're hot and start, you know, flirting when you're not supposed to. These are things that happen when we get a little bit of alcohol in us. Perspectives and communication. This is what I like. We all have our own filter, right? We've all heard it. We all see things differently. We can all hear the one story, and by the time it gets around the room, it's a little bit different for everybody. We've all seen this, haven't we? Right? This is when I saw this, I was like, oh man, this is a perfect example. Some of us see the young woman, and some of us see the old lady. And for whatever reason, the way our brains work, we only see one. We never see both at the same exact time. It takes a little bit of time to study it and determine how does our visual perception about things work. Language. Oh, this was a good one. This is a lot of times. Sometimes when I write emails, and I wrote an email recently to part of leadership to Toastmasters, and I wanted it to stand out, and so I put it in caps. And I forgot that's like yelling. And I had someone respond like, hey, that's not necessarily polite, you're kind of yelling at everybody. Even though that was not my intention at all. You guys know the email I'm talking about, right? But I thought this was cool, is a woman without her man is nothing. Just with punctuation, a woman without her man is nothing. Yeah, I was expecting Jeannie to applaud on that one right there. I thought for sure I did. But just punctuation, that's it, right? It's how, and this goes back to text messaging. How can this can easily get blown out of perspective here? Now, past experiences. This is another one. Now for me, I alluded to the fact that, yeah, I get a little bit nervous, and for whatever reason, I do get a little bit nervous when I start off, but man, once my mouth gets going, it's like a downhill, you just gotta shut me up. But past experiences, boss ignored my idea at the last meeting. So now I have a certain experience from that moment that I may be reluctant to share the next time, or open my mouth, or be brave enough to put an idea out there. And a lot of times that has to do with our personality style, our communication style. We get nervous the last time you gave a presentation. You start out more nervous the next time. You start building up that idea, those feelings, right? We have muscle memory, and that's not just our muscles. I mean, that has to do with everything that's in the core of our body. And then the group reacted well to a presentation, really like you guys are going to after I'm all done. You're going to react really, really well. And I'm going to use a similar pitch, style of pitch next time. Feelings and emotions. This is super important. And the reason I believe this is super important is because feelings are something that are inherently within us. How many times have you ever left the house just ticked off, and you've got to go do something important? You've got to do a presentation, or you just got that phone call right before you're walking into your presentation, and you're upset about it, or you're ticked off, or your feelings are hurt, or maybe you're crying in the car before you got to it, and you've got to go be the best version of yourself. But what you don't realize, even though you can wipe the tears and kind of hold it in and get that frog out of your throat, ultimately, whomever you're talking to is reading that. They're seeing that, and they know that, hey, this is what's going on. Environment. This again goes to what's the environment that you're in. We meet people in all types of different environments, whether it's at a restaurant or a coffee shop or in an office or at their home. When I used to do home appointments, sitting at the kitchen table, and I got dog hair stuck all over me. I got food crumbs and stuff on the table, kids running around, and you just don't have the attention of the person that you're trying to talk to. And especially when you're talking about mortgages, which is a really important financial matter. It's like that saying that more people spend more time planning their vacations than they do their financial future. This is one of those things where when you have an environment that's distracting, and it does make it challenging for us. Now, this is where it starts to get really in depth, because we have different communication styles. Primarily, we have assertiveness and expressiveness. And we've all heard of the personality models, and this really runs along that line. This is a little picture here that talks about how having high expressiveness, high assertiveness, and the different types of styles, from direct, spirited, systematic, and considerate. And just for consideration of time, I'm going to read through this. This just gives you the ideas of how these all correlate, right? I'm going to skip through that part. But direct communication style. People with direct communication styles, they're the go-getters. But they need to use caution. If you're this type of person, you need to use caution so that you're not come off cold or more of a dictatorial type person. So if you have that style, make an effort to really fully listen. That's a big deal, without interrupting, without trying to formulate what it is you're going to say before they're done. And recognize that others may need to be able to express themselves on the topic, and always take time to show appreciation. I think that's the number one thing that most of us miss is, we don't really take a lot of time to show others appreciation and recognize what they're trying to do. It's not easy for everybody. If you're speaking to a direct style, this is something that I learned too in sales, is these guys would talk fast. I'd be on the phone with them, and you would begin to mirror them. It's a very big quality if you can learn to mirror people. So start talking, get to the point quickly. Short sentences. I tend to go long and elaborate. This is kind of my style, but you end up being a mix of everything. People with spirited communication styles love to flesh out ideas and brainstorm and talk about the big picture. This isn't me. I'm not really about the big picture, but you have to agree upon agendas, time limits, and meetings. Try to limit your sharing of personal anecdotes. I like to share personal anecdotes. I think that they connect better, right? You know, we're all human beings and we all have personal experiences, so personal anecdotes allow us to build rapport and connect. But make sure you're allowing others to contribute ideas. We tend to get beyond that. We don't let people express themselves because, you know, we know what we want to say and we want to try to control it. Praise them in front of other people. Learn to gently redirect the conversation to the topic at hand and understand they may exaggerate. It's kind of like with my wife sometimes. She starts telling me what a great deal she had, and then I end up finding out that she got 2 of the great deals instead of just 1 of the great deals. So there's a bit of an exaggeration that goes on with that. All right. People with considerate communication styles will be interested in listening and finding out how you and others are doing. Often refrain from expressing ideas if it displeases others. Personally, I'm kind of like that. I'm not necessarily the type of person that wants to impose my beliefs or ideas. Sometimes those are just my beliefs and ideas, and I'm perfectly okay with them staying with me. I like to engage in conversations with people. I really love to learn about people, and I'm okay sharing about myself personally. If you want to know anything about me, I'll tell you anything that you want to know. It's not a big deal to me. But I also have to recognize, being that that's my style, that not everybody's into that. I had a guy that I worked with, and he didn't have wedding pictures out, didn't wear a wedding ring, didn't talk about his kids, didn't have a Facebook page. Like, you did not know anything about this guy. And I remember asking him one time, he goes, "That's just the way I was brought up. We are very private. We don't talk about anything." And I was like, wow. Like, you can never really get to warm up to somebody like that because they're not willing to open up and share themselves with you. Listening. Oh, this is what's crazy. So you figure the mind can process up 500 to 600 words a minute, but our mouths can only deliver 100 to 150 words a minute. So essentially what's happening is, because our mind can process so much information, but yet we can't talk fast enough to fill that gap, this is where our minds begin to wander. This is where we start thinking about lunch and emails and text messages and phone calls. And what ends up happening is that 50% of what we actually hear is retained. So again, this is where the miscommunication theory I spoke about earlier comes into play. Listening is vital to coding what communicating is to us. Self-awareness. All right, so this is the big deal, right? I've talked about the communication part of it, but being self-aware, that's really hard. Self-evaluation, introspect, recognizing and understanding what signals am I giving you. Do I show fear? Do I show anxiety? Do I show uncertainty? Can you hear it in my voice? Is it crackling? Am I not confident? How are you standing or sitting? Am I tense or relaxed? You know, am I closed off? You know, these are some of the big things right here. Am I making eye contact with you? You know, am I looking at the top of everybody's head, or am I actually looking at the top of your nose? Making sure to make eye contact with you so you know that I recognize in this case that you're in the audience, that you're paying attention. Could you repeat it? I love this one. This is another kid thing. When you give your kids instructions and you can tell they're not paying attention, you go, "Tell me what I just said." Well, you said to do this, and like, that's not at all what I said. You weren't even listening to me. And this is really the key thing. I would have to say this is probably the number one thing, is that too many of us are not following through on listening to what's being said. We're interpreting and we're pushing ahead in advance because we can process words so quickly that we're already formulating what we want to say next, and we're missing the message altogether. We're not getting the whole story. because we are spending the rest of our energy picking up on the backside of what they're saying, formulating what we want to say next. So this does require concentration practice. Probably like one of the most challenging things is being self-aware, being able to sit there and know what you're seeing. Become an active listener. All right, so pay close attention. Look speaker in the eyes. Stop any mental chatter. I mean, kind of redundant here. Don't start preparing a response with a rebuttal while they're still talking. Yes, this is a bit redundant. And making sure your environment doesn't distract you. You know, a lot of times little kids running around or cell phones or whatever the case is. Demonstrate physically you're listening. You know, this is good. You know, nod every once in a while, right? Give them a yeah, this is, monitor your body language. Make sure that they know that you're connecting with them. I think that's important. People want to feel that, right? That's super important. And you, again, yes, right. Don't interrupt. I'm going to kind of blast my wife on this, but my wife, we fight more about when I'm saying something that she cuts me off. Maybe that's because we've been married 26 years. It just could be that. She already knows what I'm going to say, and I'm going to go long-winded, and she just going to learn to shut me down. And I go, why don't you ever let me finish? This is one of those things. But more importantly, this is really key. Paraphrasing. Oftentimes we miss paraphrasing as a real key skill set. Paraphrasing allows the other individual to recognize that you're really paying attention, that you are interested, not beyond just a nod or a yes, but can you clarify that? Tell me a little bit more, if I'm understanding this correctly. And that helps you as well, because when you paraphrase and you re-engage them, oftentimes, can a story add a little bit more? You know, you hear it one time, and then the second time it comes around, you get another piece of it. So paraphrasing opens up that opportunity for more information to come to the table, which allows you to understand whomever it is that you're speaking with that much better. This is crazy. I never really thought about this, especially as a Toastmaster, because I'm really big on, you know, what you say and how you say it and articulating things in a certain manner. Well, look at it. It's literally how you appear, and it's nonverbal. Your actions speak louder than your words. Vocal, again, like I was talking about, vocal is body language. That's your tone. That's what emits your emotions. This is how your feelings and your emotions come across in your tone. You know, if I'm softening up to you and I start to talk nicely, you know, or talking to a little girl, I'm different than I might talk to a little boy, like, hey dude, what's going on? You little girl, oh look, you're so cute. And we use this vocal variety, but it's not necessarily what I said, but it's how that tone came across, right? You know, why do we do baby talk? It's the tone. Vocal tone, eye movement, facial expressions, gestures, postures, stance, handshakes. How am I doing on time? Okay? I just want to make sure, because this part, it's a little detailed. Tone reflects, well, this again, I just said this right now. I'm getting ahead of myself. Is it inviting you or is it deflecting you? Do I sound like a jerk or do I sound nice and friendly? Do we want an answer? Yeah.
Are we putting me in a category?
Yeah. Direct eye contacts communicate honesty and transparency. That's super important. You see that a lot. People tend to look down. Getting like that direct eye contact, really like looking into your soul, seeing what's going on in there is super important. Facial expressions, again, it reflects your attitude, your feelings, and your emotions. You know, are you in a happy mood that day? You know, or did you just come out of the car because, you know, you broke up with your boyfriend and it's a really bad day and you're coming in and you just have those expressions on your face. These are all things, what you're saying to other people. Gestures. I do it because I have this little thing here, and I didn't really think about it until I was reading this. I was like, oh man, when I talk, you know, I start tugging away at this. Like, what am I saying? Am I disguising my words? Am I lying? Like, what the heck's going on here? And I do a little bit of the chin stroking, so it's like a combination. But you never think of the eye rub, because that could be something. Maybe you got dry eyes, you know? Maybe it has nothing to do with it. I thought this was funny, hands behind the neck. I mean, I don't know about you, but I don't think I've ever been like at a house meeting sitting and someone's just chilling back like this. So, tell me more. Tell me more. No, it's never happened. Postures, again, your arms folded, unsympathetic. So I was at a meeting the other day, and it was actually super casual, and the guy was just sitting in the chair, and he was leaning, and he was just all tightened up like this, and I was thinking to myself, like, that's not very open. That's not good. Oh, arms held loose, open and positive. Sometimes that's hard. I don't know about you guys, but just kind of hanging my arms down on my side feels super unnatural for me. It doesn't feel right. And I think that's what happens, clasp our hands, or we put them together. The sideways leans, nice and friendly. How you guys doing? But, oftentimes, bowing the head, it says lower status. I always interpreted that as somewhat of a degree of respect. I'm not sure where I got that from, but just kind of having my head down, to me, seemed just a degree of respect versus like, hey, what's up? What's going on? The only time I do that is when I'm trying to read underneath my glasses. My wife makes fun of me, like, because I'm making this weird face with my head back trying to read. And the hands on hips, like that's the superhero one. I was going to wear my superhero shirt so that I could close with this, but I decided not to. I didn't want to go spend $19 at Kohl's for a Superman shirt. Touch. Okay, so I'll share a story, because touch is really important. When I was a waiter, I worked at Sizzler. I opened Sizzler and I was a waiter, and I remember somebody told me that, hey, did you know you can improve your tips by just casually touching people? I was like, wow, okay, well, I didn't know that. So every time I came up to the table, I'd always put my hand on people's shoulder, and it talks about, well, how long did it last? Did you give people a squeeze? Just give them a little squeeze on the shoulder. And you got to make sure, right, that, it's not the wife and you're giving her a little squeeze on the shoulder. And when this really stood out to me one time, I was in a social situation, and I'm a hugger, I'm a friendly guy, and I was being introduced to a woman by another woman friend, and they hugged. I don't know what I was thinking, but I went in for the hug too, and I just met her. When I pulled away, the look on her face was like, I didn't expect you to hug me, like, who the heck are you? And I think a lot of times it was just so unnatural. It was just a snap decision. It was just, I literally mirrored my friend who was introducing me, and I didn't even think twice about it, except for when I pulled away and she just had that appalled look on her face. So again, the relationship between the two parties, I assumed by what my friend was doing that it was okay for me, and it was not. The handshake. This is funny because, I always try to give a really good handshake, a nice firm handshake. But I don't know about you guys, usually, there's like 26 different handshakes now. And half the time, just with the guys, I don't know, to knuckle bump, or to do the bro hug, or to do the nice, customary traditional handshake. But there's those times when you're looking down to figure out what handshake you're going to do, and then you look up and you miss, and you're trying to fish around for the handshake. And then you end up, and then that's what happens, and you get the dead fish handshake, like, you're like, oh shoot, you got me by my knuckles right here, you don't really actually have me by my hand. And you think, oh man, that was a sucky handshake. The politician. Now, the politician is, say, oh, handshaking, you got the hand there, or here, or the elbow. I happened to notice that I was watching a documentary, and I was like, oh, there's that politician handshake right there. Palm down, palm up. To me, that's like arm wrestling. Like, I'm palming down, like, yeah, I'm dominant, or my head's up, like, oh, you got me. So, handshakes can go a lot of different ways. But here's some key things, and I'm gonna wrap it up now, but understanding your body language, going back to self-awareness, finger drumming, scratching, twitching, darting eyes, looking around as if you're not really paying attention to what's going on. Avoid hiding your hands, putting your hands in your pocket, we can tend to do that. And a lot of times hands in your pocket, you start fiddling with your change or your keys or whatever you got going on. Most of us, we have a problem. We cannot detach from our cell phones. it's like automatic. I'm always going. We even have those mock buzzings now that like it feels like, oh, I think it was my phone. I think it just rang. Nope, sure didn't. Closed body postures, folded arms across chest. Try to keep it open, inviting, and welcome. Even if you're at the table, it's okay to have your palms up. If you're sitting at a table with somebody and you're talking or maybe making notes, have one of your palms up. This really reveals you. Yeah, it is a bit of a submissive play in terms of having your palms up, but at the same time, it does make people feel secure that you're being open in that respect. Touching face when speaking, we've talked about that, and avoid staring and using the same facial expression. Just, yep, Like, oh, are you somewhere else in the twilight zone? But communicating to win was more about communicating to win in life, because I believe it revolves around all aspects of relationships. You get to learn more about yourself. You can know more about people. You can have better, stronger relationships. You can have a more rewarding life. And I think at the end of the day, we're all called to serve. Thanks very much, guys. I appreciate it.